espero que nadie se ofenda, pero hasta que no estás aquí dentro no sabes la grandeza de este equipo.
Balcão da área, deu para Yaremchuk, cruzou Gilberto, que confusão, vai ser o primeiro, tirou para dentro! Marca Darwin, é Benfica, é Benfica, é Benfica! Ele vai atirar! Absolutamente fenomenal da parte de Otamendi, vai errar, fez o alto para o golo, a chapelada, tirou para dentro! Voltava o golo do Ribatejano, é Benfica, é Benfica, é Benfica!
Só nós sentimos isso.
Welcome to episode 90 of O Cantinho Benfiquista. Where do we go from here? It's a lot to talk about here. Today with me, I have Bill, I have Kenny. Boys, how are we?
Been better.
Pretty good.
Good, but yeah, we've been better, but I feel like we've been down this road before. So today, we have a few different things to discuss. We have Benfica 1, Sporting 2. It's becoming a theme here. That's a fourth loss to our rivals this year. 2 against Sporting, 2 against Porto. We, at this rate, will have lost 6 games against our rivals this year. So we also will talk about transfer window. Yeah, that audio is, I set it up. Don't be surprised. So we will talk about the transfer window or the lack thereof today. We'll talk about some movement, but not anything exciting, at least from the first team. And we'll look ahead to Benfica Gil Vicente on Wednesday, a home game there. So we'll talk about that. We already got Coach in the comments saying Darwin Núñez going to West Ham. We rejected that, and he also said Benfica's like the 49ers, lots of dreams, but not enough
Keep
talent.
chirping, buddy.
Yeah, so as always, if you're in the comments, feel free to leave your thoughts, your feedback. I'm going to put a link in the comments if you want to jump in and vent for a minute or two. By all means, feel free to join us. We got another slot here available. Para a malta que nos esteja a ver em português, estejam à vontade de deixar os vossos comentários, deixar as vossas opiniões. Percebemos os três o português, por isso iremos abordar as vossas questões. While you're watching, hit that share button, see if we can get a few more people here in the live, and kind of cast that net to a few more Benfiquistas. If we can get one more follower every live, it'll increase our numbers. We're knocking on the door of 20,000 on Facebook, so we're getting closer to that round number. To kick things off today, we're going to talk about Benfica 1, Sporting 2. A game that I feel like was a little bit of the same for the most part. Starting 11, I'm going to start with you, Kenny. So starting 11 in terms of that game, the only difference was that Maite came in for Paulo Bernardo. We played 4-4-2 or 4-3-3 or however you want to look at it. Vlaco in the back, Lázaro on the right, Morato, Vertonghen, Grimaldo, Everton, João Mário, Weigl, Maite, Diogo Gonçalves, and Yaremchuk. A game that, again, we just lacked the ability to create anything going forward. We scored a goal on the first chance that we got, and being completely honest, we led a game that I don't think we had any business leading, but we took our chance. At that point, Sporting also had a lot of the ball, but hadn't really created a clear-cut chance. But again, we went there once and scored, and then we did nothing else. So what was your take on the game, and were you surprised to see Maite there in the midfield?
Yeah, so another poor play from the team. Disappointing loss again to a rival in a cup, in a game for a trophy. So it was disappointing to just have another one of those type of results again. Back to back years, just not winning any hardware. It doesn't look like we're going to win any hardware this year. So yeah, and what can I say? I mean, we've been talking about it week after week. I mean, the play on the field just isn't. It's not good enough. It's not what we expect. It's not what what we're used to. Although we might be starting to get used to this now for a couple of the past years, but it's not what we want to see. And I don't know, what else we can say. I mean, we've exhausted all the arguments and who to blame and what's going on. Like, it's just more of the same stuff. So it's just overall disappointing. I really don't want to really get into it. I mean, there's nothing much else to say. I think the only positive, maybe we had a little bit more attitude in this game, especially in that first half. And it was a close game. I guess the result is still, it's a closer result, but better than the first time we went against Sporting. So maybe that's a positive to build on. But overall, I don't see how we're going to improve much more than where we are right now. I think this is who Benfica is for the rest of the year. It's who we've been for the past couple of years. And unfortunately, what else can we expect? I mean, I don't know. Without many changes, with the coaching staff and, new players coming in, I just don't see the quality on this team.
Do you think we're better off today or worse than we were with JJ?
I think we're worse. I think the players kind of got what they wanted, in my opinion. And, they haven't really performed. You would think that by now, if there was going to be a change, you would have already seen it on the field. And, we're waiting to see that. And personally, I think it's gotten worse. I mean, the play on the field is much worse than when it was with JJ. So whether you want to call it the Verissimo's change in tactics, so be it. But if the players really were bothered by JJ and they got what they wanted by getting rid of him, then they should be performing better on the field. And it's just not happening.
I agree. And I think we saw that reaction, and we've talked about it before, when Rui Vitória left and Bruno Lage came in, right? It was immediate, First game, right? Yeah. And we could talk about João Felix came into the team, regardless, right? And for me, the thing is, and Bill, I'm going to pass the ball to you to get your thoughts, but the thing for me is, this team has shown personality, has shown grit, has shown passion, right? I think of the PSV game away, right? That was a game that they had to dig deep. They had to fucking battle, and they did, right? I get that we set up very deep because we were down a man, but they showed that they had personality there. Barcelona, we've seen games against Braga at home, Marítimo at home. We saw against Bayern Munich for 75 minutes at home until they scored, and then kind of the team deflated, right? So it's not like the team hasn't shown it. I could see if we went the entire season and they were just flat all season, but it's like they choose when to turn it on and when to turn it off, which is the more concerning thing to me. Bill, thoughts on this game? And my question to you is, how do you think this is going to impact us for what's to come for the season, right? This was really the only competition that we realistically had a chance at winning. We not only lose, but we lose against our rival, but lose against them after we were leading, right? So it's just like a snowball effect of just bad news. Now, I mean, we're 9 points or 12 points off of first place because Porto played yesterday. Title's very unlikely. It would have to take a miracle. Champions League, I was optimistic a month and a half ago, right? Because of all the teams that we could have got, Ajax is a good team, but far from a PSG or a Manchester City. Seeing what we've seen in the last month, I can't help but think that we're going to get absolute. Like, if we thought Sporting got smashed, if we go into this game the way we're playing, it's going to be an absolute nightmare. So thoughts on the game, what Kenny said, and what you think, how this impacts us.
I mean, just to touch on your last point there about the Ajax tie, I've said it a few times in our chat, kind of jokingly, but the way we're going, I wouldn't be surprised if they blow us out like between both legs. It's a double-digit goal difference. Like it's sad to say, but I could, like, the way that we're playing and the way that Ajax has been, and they haven't looked like they're slowing down at all. Like we could easily fucking take 4, 5, 6 in the game. We saw it against, Bayern is one of those teams that puts goals by you quick. And like you said, we kind of kept up with them for 75 minutes. And then in a span of like 10 minutes, they put, what was it, 4 past us? Like shit can happen real quick. And the way we're going, I don't see it getting any better. And for the league, I'm looking at the table now. It's sad to say, but like we might have to keep an eye on Braga. Like the way we're going right now, we're 6 points up on them. We have a game in hand, which definitely helps, but we still have to play Sporting and Porto in the league. So like that third place, like we were saying last week on the pod, which would be like a nice consolation to have, might not be guaranteed right now because we don't look good at all.
And Braga just beat Sporting away.
Yeah.
So
and into this game, like that first half, yes, we didn't create much, but you saw something different than what we've seen in the last 4 games of Veríssimo, right? We saw some aggression, and I think that's what Maite was brought in to do, because when he came in against Boavista, he came in and he looked good. He brought some physicality and control to the game, and it took him a bit to grow into the game. But in that first half, he looked strong, physical on the ball. He controlled it well. And I thought in that first half, going in at halftime, I was like, all right, well, this is something different. It's not the Benfica we want. Like, they're not playing the prettiest footy and they're not creating chances left and right, but it's something. Like, they're at least out there fucking getting physical. And then the second half came.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, it just, everything positive that you could have taken from the first half went out it went into the locker room with the guys and then it didn't come back out. Like, I don't know what it is, but like they put a decent half performance going and like they go into half, come back out, and it's like a completely different fucking team. Like they just think, oh, we're 1 up, playing well defensively, we got this. And it's like Sporting didn't change anything they were doing. They were playing the way they played in the first half. They played the exact same way in the second half. And it was Benfica, just they came out fucking flat and that was it. And once Sporting got that quick goal at the beginning of the second half, I knew it was a matter of time before they would take the lead and win the game.
But do you think that it's right against Boavista? We conceded a goal early on in the second half after leading. Against Sporting, we conceded a goal early on in the second half. Do you think that's something's missing in the message?
It's like mental lapses.
Halftime?
And I like these guys are professionals, right? So you would hope like they understand, like we've all had it ingrained in us from a young age. The first 10 minutes of a game and the last 10 minutes, or the first 10 minutes of a half and the last 10 minutes of a half are the most important, right? I've always had that ingrained in me. For every coach I've ever played for, those were like things that you have to say. Like those last 10 minutes in the half is when you have to be like on top of your shit mentally. Yep. And it just seems like this team just has these mental lapses at the worst fucking time, because that just deflates you. Like you come out the second half and concede a goal right like within the first 10 minutes.
It's like 4 minutes, 5 minutes.
They concede that goal real quick, and then that was it.
49th minute they scored off the corner kick. Kenny, thoughts on what Bill touched on, and then my question for you was going to be about the strikers, right? So we're not creating chances, and we had talked about this in our group chat about Yaremchuk, right? So Yaremchuk comes off in the second half. Gonçalo Ramos comes in. In my opinion, Yaremchuk was on an island, right? The system that we play, I think we can all agree that unless it's a player that's mobile like Darwin, it's extremely difficult because right, you're basically up there by yourself. So unless you're able to get the ball and create something on your own, it's really difficult. And Yaremchuk, from when he played, in my opinion, I thought that he actually helped us link up a little bit. It wasn't very often because we didn't get forward very often, but when we did, I would say out of 10 times, 4 or 5 times he was able to help us, right? He won a couple aerial duels or threw his body around and helped. When Gonzalo Ramos came on, I honestly can't remember him touching the ball, and he was on the field for like 30 minutes, which to me is shocking. But do you think that it's the tactic? Do you think it's the strike? And I know that you said that Yaremchuk hasn't shown you much, and I don't think that we can disagree with that. But do you think it's an element of the player? Do you think it's an element of just the strategy?
Yeah, no, I think it's more the strategy. I mean, clearly, I think we saw the game the same way, right? Yaremchuk was definitely playing on an island by himself, and he's playing with his back to the net. He's trying to hold play. And personally, I just don't think that's his style. I think he's more of a poacher. He needs to be in the box. So when I see Yaremchuk in starting 11, I expect that we're going to be just like a few games back where we're just crossing the ball in left and right. And in a game like Sparting's game, I didn't see that we crossed the ball that often. So the game plan to me is just not syncing up. So that's I think the issue, and I think that's where we're lacking with the chances. There's just no opportunity. So yeah, if Yaremchuk's our forward, we have to throw balls into the box. We can't expect him to be receiving the ball with his back to the net and then laying it off to who? Who's he laying it off to? João Mari's playing around him. Does he have he doesn't have that type of that's not his play. That's not what João Mari's there for. So I think it's a lot to do with coaching. The sub to throw in Gonzalo Ramos, I think the idea was to get more movement up top, to get him through between the lines. But again, if you can't get him the ball, then it's pointless. Correct. So I feel like the whole game here,
if we can't keep it long enough to be able to make
10 minutes,
the run,
first 10 minutes looked like us against Western Mass Pioneers. Like, we literally didn't touch the ball. Like, it was absolutely shocking. Like, Benfica looked like they had no understanding of how to play out from pressure in the back.
Absolutely,
like one pass wide, one back to the center back, dump it. All right, restart.
And it's not that. I mean, Spartan was pressing high, right? But it's not. It's not that like we couldn't get out of there. All we have to do is find that long pass,
correct,
or find that outlet pass, and we just haven't been able to do that. We haven't been able to do that for a while. I mean, we just don't see the creativity, the quality in player to be able to do that. And I know our buddy Oscar, he wants to see PZ in there. PZ's the one on the team to be able to do that. And at this, I mean, I don't disagree with them because I
agree,
but that just speaks volumes as to the lack of quality on the team. If PZ's the only player that is able to do that, then what are we doing? I mean, what's this team really made of? So, I think offensively we have a poor combination of there's just no cohesion up top to be able to create chances. I don't know what the stats ended up looking like, but I didn't see any dangerous plays that we had outside the goal. And, we've noticed that for quite some time now. I mean, it's not good enough. I mean, there's nothing else to say. It's just not good enough. It's not going to get any better without different players coming onto the team.
Yeah, I agree. And we had 2 shots on target. You see the stats here. It was the goal, and I think there was a shot at the end which dribbled to Adan, which he could have laid down and stopped it with his face. It went so slow. Again, it's really bad.
That's awful. I mean, just look at that.
Correct. And the thing that's more frustrating, and I want to touch on some of the comments here that people are leaving us. So thank you for joining the conversation. And again, feel free to leave us your thoughts. Neil Fernandez says, if we lose 6-1 to Ajax on aggregate, what would be the score if we drew City or Bayern? We played Bayern in the group stage, right? So who the hell knows? And Joey makes a comment here that I flagged, but I want to go back to it. Tel Mudia says, let's prepare for next season on top of the Champions League pre-elimination. That's if we can hold on to it. The way we're playing, I'm not really confident that we can hold on to it, to be honest with you. We still have to go to Braga. Jonathan, Sporting fan, says last season and this season, the team has played the same, no urgency, and looks disinterested in the second half. I wouldn't even say just the second half. I would say in a lot of the games as a whole. I mean, you look at the
Yeah.
Aroca game, right? I mean, it would just completely look lethargic. Neil Fernandez says Yaremchuk's a poacher who needs service. He's not going to score if he doesn't get the ball. Absolutely, right? Him coming in between lines and laying the ball off, great. But who's going to be in the scoring zone to put the ball in the back of the net, right? Like, he's not going to get there fast enough, right? Like, you need him. He needs to play with someone that can do that function, and he can hang out around the box and put the ball in the net.
He's like a Cardozo.
Yaremchuk, Chuck
He
needs
needs like his like Lima to be doing the work
Correct.
around him.
he's got to be. It's got to be a 4-4-2 system with him. He
Correct.
needs a partner up top. It cannot just be him.
Correct. It can't be him by himself. Ivo Pino says Yaremchuk's one of our best players, but is being misused in this tactic. I agree. I think out and out striker, in my opinion, he is the best all around striker that we have. He has pace, which I was surprised that we saw against Bayern Munich at home when he beat the French defender. I can't remember what his name, but beat him from midfield in a race, in a foot race. He's got strength. He could play in the air. His feet aren't that bad. But again, I think we all agree that him playing by himself is basically useless.
Yeah.
Especially the way Benfica's playing, where we don't have much of the ball. We're giving the opponent the ball, right? Makes it even worse. If you're a team that plays with a lot of possession, you're always in the final third, fine, right? Because he doesn't have to drop as much. It's extremely difficult when you don't have the ball. Talmu says, I don't understand how PZ has no place in this 11. Kenny, I'm going to give you that question. I was going to give you another one, but I'm going to give you that question. Given what we've seen lately, the way Benfica is playing, and I've heard it a lot. People have said it on TV. I've seen it on social media. The questioning of how PZ doesn't have a spot in this team, at least from the start.
Yeah.
Are you starting to see it a little bit more given the output of some of the others? Or do you still stand by what we had, I think, all unanimously agreed on except Oscar?
No, I think, I don't want to say, I mean, personally, PZ to me is not a player to start anymore. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But because of how much we are lacking on the field, I feel like either he's got to have more minutes. I mean, he cannot be coming in at 85th minute when we're down.
Yeah,
okay.
Useless.
And we're looking, to change the result. That's just no time for him. I think he either starts the game and he's going to come off early because I don't think he can, withstand the whole 90 minutes, or he's got to come in early in the 60th minute of a game like this would have been fine in the 60th minute. I think he would have given us more, more threats into the box. But to me, that just shows how bad of a team we are. That is our only player that's able to do that function on the team. And that's a huge red flag for me.
I agree. Bill,
I mean, given where
go ahead.
Just on this PZ thing, just given where the team is, like, you're looking for some kind of spark, anything that's going to give you just a little bit. And like, given where we are, he's fucking tried a young kid, given Paulo Bernardo the run that in the midfield. Hasn't worked. Clearly hasn't worked. Like, I just don't see how PZ hasn't had a shot yet just to see if that's going to give us a fucking spark. Like, that's what we're looking for right now, right? Like, that's what kind of saved our season with when Lige took over, right? João Felix came in and gave us that fucking spark right off the bat and catapulted us to the league. I think the league's out of our reach at this point, but I think we're looking for anything to at least hold on to third place and maybe second, but most likely hold on to third. In my opinion, I think you got to give PZ a start.
At least switch something up.
Yes,
yeah, like just change it up, like just
and I'm
anything
not against,
at this point.
And I'm not against Paulo Bernardo, right? He's been given some opportunities, but I don't think just enough yet, right? Like if that's the plan, then stick to it. Stop moving it around. Like, I guess this was it was a final, so I don't know why you would have not put your best team forward. If you're going to give the kid a shot, then just stick with it through the rest of the year. I mean, unless it completely falls apart, right? But at least let him get some consistency game after game after game to see if we do have something there. And if not, then fine. But I would still think that PZ warrants like coming in the 60th, 70th minute, not at the tail end of the game, where what do you expect him to do when like everyone else is pretty much defeated on the field and PZ's coming in trying to change the result and no one else is with him? Because it really does feel. I mean, look at the end of that game. We're down, and again, it just goes to show how many chances did we get towards the end of that game? I can barely remember a legit.
I remember the goal. Like apart
Right.
from that, I don't remember like clear-cut chances.
Exactly.
That
So like it just
second
shows
shot
the
on goal, I don't remember.
I remember it was a
think back
dribbler
now.
at the end.
I'm trying to think back what that second shot on goal would have been, and I can't.
It was I forgot who it was. Shot it and like hit someone, and literally it rolled so like it almost wasn't even moving. That's how slow it went to the goalie.
Yeah.
So yeah, Bill, thoughts on the substitutions, right? And this kind of goes along the lines of Joey's comment here, which is it's a new coach. It isn't going to be overnight, I'm assuming, in terms of changes. Right? It's not overnight, right? We're now 5-6 games in, right? He started, and again, I'm giving him a discount here because I'm not counting the game against Porto, right? So we beat Paços Ferreira 2-0, we tied Moreirense 1-1, we beat Arouca 2-0, we beat Boavista in penalties, and we lost to Sporting, right? So since he's taken over, again, I'm going to take the Porto game out. He's 1-2, drawn 2, lost 1. And the 2 draws is the one of them is against Boavista because it was a draw and we ended up winning in penalty. So 2-2-1. Realistically, he's got 2 losses, 2 wins and 2 draws. But again, like we've talked about, the football itself on the pitch is atrocious. There's nothing positive about it. But it also seems like, I feel like we used to crucify JJ a lot for his recently in terms of his substitutions. Like he would kill the momentum of the team. There were times that the team was playing well and then he killed the momentum of the team. And Nelson Veríssimo seems to do the same thing. And it also seems like we have 5 substitutions at our disposal, and it's almost like he's married to the fact that he has to use all 5 of those. Like they're there at your disposal if you have to make the change, but you don't have to make 5 substitutions every game. Like I feel like it's just like, all right, I got 5, I'm going to use them all, right? I'm just going to unload them all, even if it makes no sense. I'm just going to throw them in there. And it seems like every time he makes a change, it kills the team. Because in my opinion, I thought that even though Benfica conceded the goal early in the second half, I was surprised how they reacted. They still kept the ball for the most part. Sporting gave Benfica the ball after that, trying to look on the counter and play into behind their back line, which is how they scored the second goal. But the team didn't seem to really rattle as I would have expected them to. But then he starts making changes and it like completely just falls apart. Like there was no benefit to the changes he made. I think back to the Porto game. Again, he wasn't on the bench, right? But I'm assuming he was on the bench. I was thinking JJ was on the bench. He was on the bench. We come in 2-1 or 2-0. We score the goal right away in the beginning of the second half. He makes changes, completely derails the team, right? Where we all said they were playing well, right? So again, kills the momentum. So Joey says it's a new coach. It's not going to happen overnight. But from what we've seen, and again, this is second phase. Again, unfortunately, difficult circumstances for him because the 2 times he's taken over the main team have been in very difficult circumstances. But for me, this shows me that just reading the game and making decisions on the fly is something that he still lacks, which at this level, like you can't make those mistakes. And I think we've witnessed it, unfortunately, in the last month.
Yeah, he's a new coach to the A team, not a new coach. Like this guy's been managing at one level or another for years. Like reading the game is something like he should have at this point. Like he should be able to understand like the situation in the game and like what moves should be made and when they should be made. And it's not just this Sporting game where you question some of the subs. There's been a few other games where he's made changes and you kind of scratch your head to like, why are we making this change at this point? And yeah, I think I don't know if it's like a B team thing where he like tries to get everyone, like as many players on the field as possible. Cause he does, looking back, like he does use up, most times he uses up all the subs. And like I take this game out of it, it's a final. At the end, you're just going to throw as many forwards on the field as you can and hope for a miracle. But you don't have to keep making all your fucking changes. Like if the game calls for it, yeah, make a change or two. You don't have to make 5. And like for the most part, that's 5 subs coming in the second half. Like that's a lot of fucking changes
in like a 20-minute time frame.
Yeah, it throws your team like it takes a sub.
It unbalances everything.
Yeah, like a sub for the most part, like it's hard for a sub to come in and have an impact in the game. It takes them a little bit to grow into a game. And when you're making 5 subs, like you're not giving no one on the team time to adjust to that new player on the field. And with 5 of them, like it just fucking throws everything into whack.
To his defense, I mean, we haven't played that well. Personally, I don't think we've played that well where it's like, all right, let's not make any changes. I think he's just trying to feel out different I don't know, not tactics, but like just different positions to see where guys fit. I understand what you guys are saying, but it also doesn't help that the quality off the bench is just as bad as what's on the.
But then and this brings up a point here, right? Where Jorginho says, "Someone please explain the reasoning why he took off Diogo Gonçalves and puts in Gil Diaz when we are tied 1-1. Why another defender? Not to mention Morato is like limping." So there's a couple aspects here, and I'll pass this one to you, Kenny. Is again reading the game, right? Sporting plays the same way every time. They bring a player from the front. They bring him wide, and a midfielder, normally Porto Sarabia, appear in between the outside back and the center back. It happened constantly. How many times did Sporting get to the end line? Constantly. Every single time they got there. The inability to read that and make the adjustment during the game, for me, is absolutely shocking. Against Boavista, same thing. Lazaro was getting torched by Kenji Gore. He was unable to make the adjustment. And then Lazaro in this game looked much better, right? Because there was a little bit more organization there, right? But the inability to read those situations, he takes off Diogo, who I thought wasn't good. I don't think he was good against Boavista. I'm not bothered by Diogo coming off. What I'm bothered by is you bring in a Gil Diaz, who's left-footed. He's normally an outside midi. He played as a wing back on Famalicão, but he can play both positions. You put Gil Diaz on the left, you bring Everton on the right, where Everton has shown that he's not as influential on the right. So essentially there you kill off his capacity, which again, I thought Everton was one of our better players in the grand scheme of things, right? So not only do you kill off Everton now, you put in a Gil Diaz on the left when on your bench you have Paulo Bernardo, who's played on that right side before. You have Pizzi, who has played on that right side before, and instead you choose to bring on Gil Diaz. That is the thing that absolutely blows my mind, that of all those decisions, that's the one that you took. Like, is that not concerning?
Yeah, no, it is. It is. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, I guess, it's not ideal, but like you said, I mean, I don't disagree with, like you said, taking off Gonçalves, because I also agree that he wasn't having the best game and you needed to change something immediate. At that point in the game, you needed to change something. It wasn't the best sub, but then again, understand that there's not that many options on the bench. I know we have, it's the PZ and who else was it that you said? Oh, Paulo Bernardo. But those aren't
Almeida, Enrique Araújo, Paulo Bernardo, Gil Dias, Ferro, Elton Leite, Pizzi, Gonçalo Ramos, Tarap, and not to mention that Radonjic and Gilberto were called, but they sat in the bench. They didn't, or they sat in the stands. They didn't get called to the bench.
Yeah.
So you left 2 players who are a little bit more experienced, especially Gilberto, and Radonjic, who hasn't played much, but he's shown some sort of
he's more of a dynamic player. Yeah,
correct.
Sure.
Right. And then your option of the ones you have, I think there are at least 2 other options that are more viable than a Gil Diaz.
I agree.
And that's the thing that's questioning or concerning.
Yeah. Look, it's I mean, it's not pretty, dude. It's all around. It's just dysfunctional. It's a mess. It's hard to, point a finger on something. I think that it's a combination of a ton of things. We'll probably get into it. I didn't like Verissimo's, posture and what he said at the end of the game. I think he's a man that's, based on what he was saying, It just seems like a guy that's just, he knows he's there till the end of the season and that's it. And he's just riding. He's just trying to survive at this time, at this point in time, and do the best that he can. And then his days are numbered. So, and I feel like the players are, got the similar sentiment from the players too. I think they're just there to kind of wait out the season. And they're probably talking. I joked about this on our group chat, right? They're probably talking to their agents like, hey, figure out what the next move is, because at the end of the season, we're not staying around.
Yeah, and it's good segue into that. And I want to bring up the comments that Mentores made after the game.
Pelo que ainda há para fazer. Liga dos Campeões e Campeonato.
Clube como o Benfica não pode.
Can you guys hear that?
Acabou a época.
Yeah.
O clube é tão grande que tens que honrar essa camisola. E quem veste essa camisola tem que ser grande. Não pode ser medíocre, não. Tem que ser grande. Porque essa camisola é uma camisola muito grande. E é uma camisola que todo jogador que tem que dar. Às vezes podes até perder o jogo, mas tens que dar tudo.
E estes jogadores são grandes?
Para alguns que estão ali, não. Esta é a minha opinião.
Obrigado, Pedro.
Right, so he says, alguns destes jogadores não são grandes, right? So, and Kenny, we had gone back and forth on it in our group chat about, some players might not be checked in to the rest of the season, which, again, it's a very good possibility. I can't convince myself of that because, right, even if these guys want to move away, right, they need to show some sort of commitment, right? Because as we saw in this January transfer window, Benfica had a very difficult time of placing some of these guys that they would have liked to get rid of, right? So if you're just hanging around and fucking around and not making any interest, right, it's going to be even more difficult for you to go somewhere else. But what do you take of these remarks coming from a player who's been at Benfica, who played at Benfica, who had been part of the club during some of their difficult times in the early 2000s? And after watching this final, he has these comments to make. And I think it touches also on I think it goes a little bit into the manager's posture as well in terms of, is he able to motivate them as well? Kenny, I'll start with you.
Yeah, no, I applaud what Mentor said. I completely agree with him. But I also understand that this is from a fan's perspective, right? And, Mentores was an ex-player, but he's been there. He knows that. And the times were different back then. I mean, at the end of the day, we're in a different era in football where money talks and a lot of players play for the money and not for the name on the back versus the name on the front. So I understand that, but you still see it with, when I watch Porto, when I watch Sporting, like, I think what's missing on Benfica's team is a unity of the players, not necessarily like playing for the team, but playing for each other. And this, I see it on Sporting, I see it on Porto. We do not play. I just don't personally think we play for each other. Okay. And if you're not playing for the team and you're not playing for each other, then what are you doing there? You're just there to collect your paycheck and move on to greener pastures at the end of the season, in my opinion. So that is the biggest thing that's missing on this team. And unfortunately, it's not going to change without a huge overhaul in the locker room.
Bill, thoughts on that? Do you agree?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I had seen that. I saw him make those comments live. And I was like, this sums up this squad perfectly. Like, there's some players on here that they're decent players. They just don't have that drive. Like Kenny was saying, like we see with Porto and Sporting, when they're down, they're fucking clawing until the end. And when Benfica gets down, it's like game over.
Down.
Like, it's
just down.
Yeah, it's over. Like, you just don't see that fight, and you get that when it's a team, right? Like when everyone's in it together and everyone's fighting together, that's when you see it, and you don't see that at Benfica. So there's clearly something going on in the locker room where there's cliques or stuff going on where it's not a unit, right? Like, I mean, it's frustrating. And like you said, Mentores was there during the bad times. Like, he wasn't there when we, went on a run of 4 campeonatos in a row. Like, he was there through the dark times and before we had all the Seychelles and all this luxuries. Like,
well, he was there with Seychelles, but he was.
I think
he won the title. He won the title in 2004, 2005, but he was already like on his last legs.
Right. Right.
Joaninha makes a good comment here. You know, when they force you to go to those BS events at work to look like or to get to know everyone and make those
Team
connections,
building.
they need to.
That's
What
so
are they?
true.
What is it called? Speed dating, where you like have a clock and you just move your way down the table. I
Yeah.
think they need to do that at the Seychelles. Just have all the player like, hey, hi, I'm Paulo Bernardo. Nice to meet you. This is my favorite position. This is what I like to. Maybe they need some of that, some team bonding events
It's
to
bad.
make it work. But I'm not sure how they're going to make it work. Quickly to close this out, Talmo made a comment. The president gave up in December. What else can I say? Do you think that, Bill, I'm going to start with you. And Kenny had made a comment earlier. I think it was in our chat that, you know, he preferred to stick with Nelson Verissimo until the end. And I'm going to ask him next if he still feels that this is his opinion, seeing what he's seen. Bill, do you think that we threw the towel in with the decisions that were made way too early?
See, this is a tough one. Like, they got rid of JJ. Just like looking at managers that were available, there's like who was out there that
There was quite a few. There was quite a few
that you'd want at Benfica, right? Like without having to, because I don't think Benfica is going to pay release clauses to get a manager off of.
But not many managers have
team.
release clauses, right? Like at the end of the day, the way I look at it, and I guess sorry for hijacking your response, but the way I look at it is, this is what I would have liked to see is, okay, Nelson Verissimo come in for a couple of games, just hold things over, and we're going to start working things in the background, right? Go get a manager who is someone that you want to fit your project, right? And what you say is, listen, we would like to have you now, but there's no expectation for you in this season, right? We're currently in X, Y, and Z, right? We know it's a difficult situation. We know it's not your team, right? But this is what our plan is. This is what we want to do, right? Do you align with our project? And if we're able to achieve something better than these minimums, great, right? But there's no requirement for you to go to the next phase of the Champions League, right? To beat Ajax, right? It would be nice if we could win the Taça da Liga, but we know again that this isn't your team. But it gives you that time between now and the end of the season to figure out who you have, to work with those players, and figure out in the summer who stays, who goes, because we know that they already fit your system. You're familiar with them. They understand your working methods. And instead, we're not doing that. And it just worries me that we're spending all this time with Nelson Verissimo. We're burning off some of these players and their interest. And come June, we're basically going to be back to square one, which is, here's a new manager. Here's his new strategy. How do you think it fits? Do you like him? That's the thing that drives me absolutely nuts. I know it's difficult to go get a manager in the middle of the season. I know that, especially given the pressure that they have walking in, given the fact that we haven't won a title in 2 years. But if anything, I think this is worse of waiting till the end of the season. Bill, I'll pass the ball back to you. I apologize for hijacking your response, but
no, dude,
it absolutely blows my mind.
And I agree. I just think that like you said, like it's not easy to find a manager in the middle of the season. And like Everton in the EPL got rid of their manager and have settled.
But do you think if Benfica went and knocked on the door of Leonardo Jardim, who's in Saudi Arabia, right? If he fits their system and said, hey, listen, we want you to come back to Portugal. This is our plan. This is our structure. Does it align with you? Do you think if Benfica went to River Plate and said, hey, Marcelo Gallardo, this is what we'll offer you. This is our plan. This is how it aligns with what we think you can do. Do you think if they went to Paulo Fonseca, right? I'm not saying that these are guys that I want. Right. But what I'm saying is if they went and said, listen, you got no pressure this season. Go in, establish cohesion within the team, establish relationships, figure out who you have and who you don't have, who do you need, who do you not need, and let's plan for next year, 6 months in advance. That's what I would have liked to see. Again, sorry for cutting you off.
So even if they had done that, I still think we're probably in the same boat we're at right now.
But I think we're better suited for next year.
I agree. In the long term, I think that is probably the better play. But I do think we'd be sitting in the same situation we are right now. I just think the players we have and the squad that was built with like one formation in mind, and there's no like deviating from that, because we've seen in these last 4 games that this 4-4-2 or 4-3-3 or however you want to work it doesn't really work, because the team was essentially built to play that 3-5-2 or 3-4-3 or whatever, however you want to look at it. But I agree, in the long term, it probably would have been better to bring in a manager that you would want to keep here for more than just the 6 months. Sorry, Kenny, cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Keeping Verissimo was essentially saying what Rui Costa said a few weeks ago, like the plan is to keep him until the end of the year, and then we'll reevaluate. You're essentially making him a lame duck coach. Like you're telling him, like, yeah, you're not the plan for the future. We're just using you to fill the gap.
But the worst part is they take him from the B team, who was doing well, and they replace him with Tony's son. So when Nelson Verissimo leaves at the end of the year, he's not going back to the B team.
No.
Right? So you would imagine that this conversation was had, right? Like, listen, if you leave, right, if you don't end up staying, I'm assuming you have something else lined up, because they said he turned away deals to coach teams in the first division because there was already a plan in the works of him potentially replacing JJ if that decision was made. So the whole situation just completely ties me nuts. Kenny, I'll pass it to you, and I promise you I'll do my best not to interrupt you.
No. You can certainly interrupt me, because I mean I agree. So it's not an easy thing to look at, right? I think there's a ton of different variables, right? So one thing with Verissimo is he already came in as an interim coach, right? So is it easy again, or would it be easy for him to accept an interim role again this season? I think when the conversation was had with him, I think the conversation probably was for an interim position, but he probably could have pushed back and said, well, I already did this interim thing. Like, why don't you give me, like, I either want a shot or I'm not doing it. And I think at that point, this is all hypothetical, right? But personally, I wouldn't want to just be the interim coach every time something goes bad. I got to go in and just ride out for a couple of games and let someone else take my position. I want a shot at a top level head coaching position. So that could be one variable. I do agree with is it Telmo that brought the question up? I agree with Telmo. The president, 100%. And I have now 2 reasons to criticize Rui Costa. And he is.
Oh, babe, let's hear it. This snippet's going on TikTok. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So he is my all-time favorite player. I have so much admiration for Rui Costa, but he has not, in my opinion, made the right decisions with the departure of Jorge Jesus and how he handled the second half of this season. So I do believe that by putting Verissimo in charge for the rest of the season, he pretty much gave up on the season, because there is no plan. He might say, well, there is a plan. The plan is Verissimo until the end of the season. But that's just an easy way out. Like Bill said, he's the lame duck coach that at the end of the year, if things ride well, he was the next Lage. If things ride well, go bad, well, he's an easy person to just dismiss. He was just a replacement. So I don't agree with that, because in reality, that is not a plan. That is not a long-term plan. That's just a Band-Aid on the problem. Okay. The big problem is in that locker room. And that is the second, that's the other thing that he messed up on, is he entitled those players to run that locker room, not the head coach. And so that's 2 things. And I'm sorry, I'm like repeating myself, but those are the 2 things that I disagree with how he has made those decisions. Now I agree. Like, I semi-agree with you with, like, he should have brought in a coach from outside or someone to finish off the season and get prepared for the next season. But let's just say, instead of looking completely embarrassing like you do right now, maybe you just look a little bit embarrassing. You still don't hit any of the goals. Is it easy for Rui Costa not to get criticized and to hold him for the upcoming season? Or is he then criticized again? He's like, well, it didn't work with him. Why would you stick around with him for another season? Start over and start fresh again with someone else. So instead of making 2 head coach decisions in a matter of 6-7 months, this way put in Verissimo. If he pans out, he pans out. If not, he's easily out. And now I can start a fresh chapter with this club and move forward from everything else that's been in the past, because Jorge Jesus was not my pick. Verissimo was really not my pick. He was just a Band-Aid. Now I can start fresh. But like you said, it might be too late, right? Hopefully behind the scenes, he is working on something.
That's what I'm hopeful of.
Something. Yeah. Hopefully behind the scenes, but we will only find out later down the road. But yeah, I mean, I think this whole thing has been mismanaged from a player level to a coaching level all the way up to the top. It's just not. It's messy. It really is.
But would you rather be in this situation that we are today with the manager that is going to be our manager next year? I would.
But how much?
But do you think? So think about the fans.
Yeah.
If they bring a manager in.
Yeah.
Right. Jardim. Say they bring him in.
Yeah.
And shit is as bad as it is right now.
Correct. I think
at the end of the season,
I think he has more leeway.
Oh, we'll see what he has going in. I think
so.
I think the way shit is gone, I think Benfica should get this fucking guy. I think by the end of the season, they'd be waving the white flags at the side of the lose too.
This is my take on it. And those of you guys that are listening in, feel free to give us your thoughts as well. My take on it is, if Benfica said in December, when they got rid of Jorge Jesus, if they said, listen, we've defined a manager who we're going to sign for 1.5 years, 2 years, and he aligns with our project. We've proposed the project. This is what our plan. It's to have some experience and mix in some Seixal. We want short rosters so we can bring in the youth and implement them. The manager aligns with our vision. We've sat down, had the conversation. He's going to take over now. I think that if they did that and explained that, I think that the fans would be more accepting if things didn't start off well, because this isn't his team. What I think is happening is people are frustrated, and rightfully so, and I'm one of them, that Nelson Verissimo is 100% an interim manager, as much as Rui Costa doesn't want to admit it, right? Out of respect, and fine. But he's struggling equally with the team that's not his. Plus, this is a guy that took over in another difficult situation when Bruno Lage left and didn't get a reaction, right? So this isn't just the first time, it's the second time. And again, he's been put in a situation that is extremely difficult for any manager to take over, right? But he was the chosen one, right? And I think that, in my personal opinion, I think fans would be more accepting, at least I can speak for myself, that if we had a manager, I would be more accepting of the fact that, yes, the season has gone to shit, but this manager has a lot of time to figure out, who he's got and who he can count on and who he can't count on. Now, my hope is that, like you said, Kenny, is in the background, a guy that's been around the game for so long, has the connections and has the understanding about the sport. My only hope is hinging on the fact that Rui Costa has a plan going on in the background, has someone selected, and is working on these conversations now to say, listen, this is our plan. You're going to be our coach, right? Based on what you see, who do you think you can count on? Who do you think you can't count on? And we'll make movements in the summer based on the analysis that we do between now and then. Because if that plan isn't happening, we're going to get to May, and right now we're going to be searching for a manager, right? And then you have to figure out who goes, who comes, right? The manager doesn't have that much time. If we finish third, we have to go into the qualification for the Champions League, right? So we start the season early again, right? So that whole thing condenses the time that you have to figure all this out, and it becomes a shit show again. And then it's a roll of the dice, right? Is next season lost already? That's the question. And that's the thing that pisses me off. Anything else that you guys would like to add on that?
I'll just add that I think it would have been hard to bring in maybe the guy that he wanted to bring in this as fast as possible to the situation that's like, there wouldn't be a lot of coaches that would accept the Benfica job right now with the squad that's here, even with a long-term vision, right?
You don't think so?
I think so. I think so, because it hurts their image as a coach. Imagine you get completely thrashed by Ajax. You can't beat Porto. You can't beat Spartan. You don't win a trophy. Maybe you look a little bit better than you do right now, but you still look pretty miserable because these players are just not committed to this team. And again, I still think it wouldn't personally, I wouldn't think badly on the coach. Like, I don't think it's all Verissimo's fault. I think a lot of it has to do with the players, but I feel like we needed someone to come in quickly, and Verissimo probably only wanted to accept the job if they actually gave him a legit chance at it and to ride out the rest of the season. And to be able to get someone quickly onto the team, it was gonna that committed to the the situation that we're in. It would have been difficult. Might have not been his number one choice. Maybe an option B or an option C. And then at the end of the year, I think a lot of coaches do have pride in how their overall record and how they come off. Like, it would have been a huge hit if like a Gallardo came in and he looked just like this. Like, it wouldn't have looked good on him. And he, that maybe with time, right? Maybe building something behind the scenes, having a longer plan. It's better. I mean, I get it. It's going to be a short season, right? You're going to probably have to qualify for Champions League again, but I think it's just better it's better for Rui Costa and the new coach to be like, our era starts now. All this other stuff was the previous administration. That was JJ was Luis Vieira's pick. Verissimo was just a Band-Aid to finish off that miserable mess that was there. My era starts now with this coach. This is the next 5 years. And I think that might give him, it might look better for him.
Next season starts earlier now because the World Cup in December
correct.
Or whatever.
It's correct.
So even shorter season.
Right. So Ivo makes a good point here. Sorry, Bill. Is when Ruben Amorim joined Sporting, like, they finished below Braga, where he came from, right? But the plan was, listen, you come in and build the philosophy and build the foundation here. Who cares about how this year finishes? Just fucking fix it. And they conceded some very bad goals. They continued to play out of the back, even though they didn't have the players to do it. And look what he's done, right? And again, these are situations that don't happen very often, right? You're not going to get a Bruno Lage situation every time, right? And I think in some ways, I think that may have been them rolling the dice on Nelson Verissimo and hoping that it panned out that way, right? It's not always going to happen this way, but I think that's a good example, right? Is they brought in Ruben Amorim with, listen, don't worry about this year. Do what you can this year. Let's start thinking about next year, right? And I think that was a good example, right?
I also think doing that is easier when you haven't won a title or anything in 20 years. Like, no, I'm not trying to shit on Sporting, but like when you haven't won, and like Benfica, the expectation now, like, we have just come off of all these titles. We haven't won in a year. Like, we haven't won in a few years. We have to get back to winning.
Correct, but Sporting also
hasn't won forever.
But Sporting paid 15 million just to get this guy away from Braga.
And I agree. Well, that's why they're going to give him the time to develop.
Correct, but there was more for me. There's more pressure. They just paid 15 million just to get the guy away from the other club. On top,
but if you pay 15 million, you're not going to sack him after.
And Benfica should pay the 30 million to take him from Sporting.
No chance he comes to Benfica. But again,
at this point, I don't give a shit about the money, how much in debt we have to be in. Like, dude,
sell the naming rights to the stadium.
We're too concerned about making money off players instead of just taking losses. Dude, take your losses, get rid of the bad apples on the team, and the same goes for the coach. I don't care. Like, if Ruben Amorim, I know he doesn't, right? He says he's perfectly fine at Sporting and he does not want to move and whatever. But if I ever heard him saying that he would be interested, I would pay 45. I mean,
obviously he wouldn't say it outright, but I'd be surprised if Benfica came knocking, if they could, that he wouldn't. But I would also be surprised if there was no anti-Portuguese club clause in his contract. It wouldn't surprise me.
Wasn't there something like that with a player or something? And we found a way around it
with the players. Yeah, I don't know how it pertains to the coaches, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Just get the lawyers on it; they'll figure it out.
Dude.
I still remain with the opinion that if Ruben Amorim ever comes to Benfica, it won't be within the next 4 or 5 years. I know we like to have wishful thinking, but I don't see it happening. To close this off, who is your MVP of this game? Kenny, I'll start with you.
I would say, Everton. He had a nice goal. I did see, Vertonghen didn't have the greatest game, but I liked the fight that he had. Right, I think was he the captain, by the way?
Yeah.
Was he the captain on the field? Yeah.
Yep.
He did show some fight. You know, he got in the face of some players, some Spartan players in the face of the ref. So I liked seeing that from him, because we don't get to see that a lot from a lot of the players, right? So again, that's attitude, right? We've been asking just let's get the attitude back on this team. So that was that was nice to see. But I did like Everton's goal. I actually thought it was a nice move, and he hit it lefty, which is not, he always goes to his right. So It was nice to see him have another decent game.
Bill?
No, I agree with, I think, I mean, you look at it, you'd say Everton just because he got the goal, but I think Vertonghen, set the tone in that first half, and I thought he played very well. I mean, even the goals we conceded, I don't think any of them were on him. I mean, the first goal came off a corner.
The 2 goals are Morata's fault. They're both on his side, which I think goes to show that he can't play on the right side of a 2-back or 4-back.
Yeah,
he's left-footed. He's used to playing on the left.
I thought Vertonghen played well, and like Kenny said, like you typically don't see that fiery side of Vertonghen, and it might be I have never watched a lot of Tottenham games, so I don't know if he ever did that before, but it might be just because we have Otamendi's typically there, and he's typically the one doing that, and you don't need both center backs to be fired up, jumping into everything.
The more leaders, the better.
I mean, at this point, fuck it, Bash Brothers. I'll take them both. Fuck it.
I mean, the team was pretty disappointed at the end of the game, but I noticed the camera was mostly on Vertonghen at the end of that match, and he was head down, pretty disappointed. So, at least it means something to them. That's what it looks like.
He said he came to Benfica to win titles. Yikes! Yeah. 2 years without one. Telmo says Vertonghen. Yeah, true.
Earlier,
Spuds didn't win very much.
He's never won anything at Spuds, so
Vertonghen and Grimaldo for Telmo. Joaninha says Vertonghen as well. I agree. I thought again. For me, since JJ left, Everton seems to have improved game over game. Again, he's still not the Everton from that Copa America with Brazil, but he's shown a hell of a lot more than he did with JJ.
He needs to be on that left.
Less defensive responsibilities, which I think is giving him a little bit more freedom, a little bit less pressure. I thought Vertonghen was outstanding. He covered 2 or 3 times, last ditch tackles. Lazaro had a couple moments where he came across and cut a couple balls that came across the box. Again, he had a couple mental lapses throughout the game. I thought Morata was not very good. Both goals for me are his fault. The corner kick, he's standing and watching, reacts way too late. And then their second goal is a ball played over his head. Again, just a lack of awareness. You can put that on Lazaro as well. But yeah, I think for me, it shows that Morata can't play on the right side of a 2 center back system. He has to play on the left and the left only. And if he can't play on the left, then someone else needs to go in there. I know that we didn't have Otamendi available. You have Julian Weigl that's played as a center back. Again, the likelihood of you putting a midfielder there and having a center back on the bench, unlikely, but I think he showed that we can't really count on him, at least in a big game, on the right side of a 4-back line. Moving forward here, transfer deadline day closed today. Benfica signed one person, a 19-year-old or 18-year-old from Chapecoense. He's going to go to the B team center back. There's a lot of hype around him. We'll see. Ferro went out on loan to Hajduk Split in Croatia. Cadiz was sent to Famalicão on a permanent deal.
Finally.
Yeah. He was at Nashville, right? Nashville in the MLS, I think it was.
Yeah, I think he was somewhere in the MLS.
Pedro Gainches was a center back. He was on the B team. He moved to Paços Ferreira on a permanent deal. Ronaldo Camara, who I like, midfielder from the B team. He went on a permanent deal to, I believe it's the Italian division. Monza is the name of the team. For Benfica, I believe, keeps 50% of his next purchase. So hopefully things pan out for him. I had a question here for you guys. There was a rumor this morning that West Ham offered, and they mentioned it on Sky Sports as well. West Ham offered £45 million plus 5 for Darwin Nunez.
Not enough.
Don't forget, Almeria has 20% of his rights still on next sale. a rumor is that Benfica said they weren't willing to listen to anything less than 80 million. If this rumor is correct, Bill, would you have taken the deal?
Nope. Nope.
Nope.
Simple.
Straight up
I mean,
no.
he's been our best goal scorer. I'm not going to say forward or striker because I don't think he's a net striker. I think we've all agreed he's probably better coming off that left side, the left wing, if you will. But he's been our best goal scorer this season. We invested a hefty chunk, and even Almeria still owns 20%. So I mean, a 50.
So they get 20% of his next sale,
right? So like, but I mean, selling him for 50, you're not getting that 50. 20% is still going. I mean, I don't think it's a good sale. I'd hold on to him for at least one more year. If he blows up next year, then you sell him at the end of the season for 80, 90, 100. I mean, strikers, we see it. Strikers have one good year, they're going for big bucks. João Felix had 6 months.
Yeah.
Good 6 months and 125 mil.
Yep.
Like, that's all you need. You need a good season, not even a full season, half a season, it looks like, and you're going to get that 100 or 90 or 80, whatever. I would hold on to him for at least for one more season.
Would you, Kenny?
I don't know. That's like a good number where it's like it makes you think. I mean, the other end of that conversation is he's an injury away from not being worth anything.
But
right?
So is everyone else.
Right. But
you're not going to sell everyone just because you're concerned
he's not the most healthiest player though. He's gotten a few knocks.
He has. He's been operated, I think, on the same knee like 3 times.
So I mean 50's like an intriguing number to make you think. I mean, I don't think you're going to get 80. I mean, so if you're split,
you don't think so?
Right now, no.
I don't think so.
I mean, but
in the summer, if he
comes into next season and bags 25 goals,
he's already got 20.
Yeah, I mean, if you have another season where he has 25, 30 goals, you don't think fucking some team's going to come in and pay.
Look, we saw
over 50. I think it easily happens.
I don't know what's his like. How many more years does he have with us?
3 more, I believe. Let me see.
He still has 3.
Yeah, I think he signed a 5-year deal.
I mean, we had this argument, I saw this discussion on our big group chat about how more and more players are riding out their contracts and not signing extensions. I mean, look,
2025.
2025. All right, so it's a couple more years, but
yeah, I don't think we're not in the spot to worry about him running.
Yeah, I don't think we're in that spot, but I don't see players. I mean, other teams dishing out a ton of money on these type of transfers anymore. Like, what's like the biggest, like 80 million for a hybrid winger / forward that's on a shitty team.
Man City just spent $100 million on a guy that sits on the bench.
Yeah, but he's not going to be going to I don't think he's going to be going to a top 5 club in EPL. I think
if he's bagging goals, 100%.
Dave says here in the comments, should have taken the money and ran. If you watch him, do you truthfully believe he's worth more than the 50?
I'm on that thing. Look, I'm not saying like I think 50 is a good number. I mean, if you're looking for 80, maybe you could have negotiated an additional clause on his next sale or something, or maybe you could have gotten it up to 60. But I don't think you're getting 80 million out of him, even if he has like a Luis Diaz type of year next year. I still don't think. I mean, he's already having that type of year this year. I mean, how much better do you think Darwin's going to be? I don't see him being like a Di Maria, like a João Felix. Like I don't see that. So
goals talk, dude. Like when you start bagging goals left and right,
he's 22 years old.
He's young, dude. All teams care about is
we'll see. Look
at Holland. Look at Holland.
He's also
he's bagging goals left and right. He's got the fucking world at his feet.
He's also got I mean, we can't compare Holland to Darwin.
I'm not. I'm just saying, like you bag goals.
I know what you're saying.
You're gonna teams are gonna pay for that. Like,
but he's also being. Dave says he was purchased for too much. I don't disagree with that either. But he's also now becoming a regular in the Uruguayan national team, right? So, like, if he continues this form if he becomes a regular, right? If he does become the successor of Luis Suarez on the national team, right? He's going to have exposure next summer at the World Cup if everything goes well for him. And who knows? I personally think that Benfica could get, if he stays fit and continues on form, that Benfica can get at least 70 million for him. He's still very young. Yes, there are some things that he needs to improve on, but I think that comes with age. I think that comes with experience, comes with maturity, and I think with the right manager, I think that he could improve significantly because there aren't many strikers or players in his position that have the speed and the strength that he has. Right? It just sometimes he looks like he has two left feet, unfortunately. But he looks like a little bit more confident than he was last year, which is a positive. But I'm of the opinion that we could get at least 70 million. So in this situation, I would have rejected the transfer as well. So Bill says no. Kenny seems more inclined to say he would have taken it.
I probably would have taken it. Yeah.
Okay.
We're all complaining that Rui Costa has settled this, as like given up on the season. If he had sold Darwin right now, we would be crucifying Rui Costa for giving up on the season.
I wouldn't have.
Because then you're left with Gonçalo Ramos, Yaremchuk.
Exactly.
And
we all know how the season's going to end regardless. I mean,
who cares? But that's the thing, finishing the season, you have Gonçalo Ramos right now as your second striker because Seth is hurt.
Guys, I feel like
not what I want.
I just feel like the market is much different now. I just don't see teams coming up. Why is Benfica the only club that gets these high transfer ticket deals?
I mean, they're not the only ones.
I mean, we're like third place. Like we're fighting for third place with a type of player. Like I think clubs are not going to come over to us and just offer us the release clause on a person like Darwin. Even if he could have 20 plus goals and 10 plus assists and be a stud in our league. I think Benfica struggling through the season right now depreciates his value.
I don't disagree with that.
I think his value also gets depreciated because it's January. Most teams aren't going to pay.
Correct. Most teams don't
what they would pay in the summer for a player now.
Correct. Normally, the January transfer window is to kind of fill any gaps, or injuries that may have come up. But again, I think
Luis Diaz. I mean, why didn't he go for a ton more?
You know why that didn't happen, right?
They're desperate. Well, yeah,
I get that they needed the money, but like,
and they didn't make that much money off it. At the end of the day, Porto made $8 million off of 8 million euros.
What was the total?
It was
price?
45 plus 15, but they gave 20% to his youth team, agent fees. They owed Liverpool 14 million for Grujic, right? So it was basically paying that debt. At the end of the day, they made 8 million plus the 15 bonus for the best player in the league.
15.
Yeah, but that also affects the Portuguese market. Okay, like another team's going to be like, look, your best player in the league just went for 45, and you want almost double that. Like that's just not going to happen. Regardless,
it was an odd situation. Right? I mean,
I agree, but it does affect you. I think
Fabio Silva went to Wolves for 40 million. Fabio Silva
never fucking played in the
Look,
I don't disagree with anything you're saying.
The only thing I get what you're saying too. I think the only thing that will really put him above anyone else or like really put his transfer value up is if he. Well, I'm assuming that he's going to get called up for the World Cup. How he doesn't in the World Cup next year. If he has like a really good showing, that's where like I think his value will really skyrocket. I think that more than whatever he does at Benfica. I think the World Cup's going to dictate that.
I also agree with that.
I mean, yeah, a World Cup.
But, I mean, we're not going to get the release clause. I think his release clause is like 150 million. No. We're not going to get the release clause. But
I think we can at least get
60, 70.
50.
I think we can, given his age. Last topic here quickly is John Textor. Benfica reported today to the CMVM that they have, I guess, moved on from the conversation with John Textor. They don't feel like there's any value to the club at the moment. So they've made that decision.
You know who's knocking on his door right now?
Who?
Fucking up north.
Oh, I mean,
You
they
don't think
already
he's
had
already
reached out
had
to him
like
before.
20 fucking voicemails from Pinto da
Kenny,
Costa?
what do you think about that decision?
So they closing the door completely, or just saying not at this time?
At this, I would imagine that it's not entirely right. I'm sure if they revisit it in a year from now, maybe they'll listen. But they feel like at this moment there's other priorities and there's other things they want to focus on, and it's
What?
not
Cidade
a moment.
do Benfica?
I had seen he said Texter or whatever his name is said that if Benfica wasn't interested, he has other
That's what I'm
teams in
thinking.
Portugal.
I
He's already
think
said it that he has other teams in Portugal.
He had
that are
said that
interested.
before, yeah.
Well, I
But
mean,
there's
even even outside of Portugal, I mean, these type of investors, they'll be
I
able
mean,
to
he just
find
invested
someone.
he invested in Crystal Palace. He just invested in Botafogo. So
Yeah, I think it's a missed opportunity. I think, you know, I would have liked to see it and seen what the what could have came out of it. I think sooner or later it's going to happen in the Portuguese league. I think someone will eventually accept some type of investor relationship. Um, and I would have been open to it. You know, I don't know if he's not, you know, I don't really know him that, you know, whatever he does or whatever. So I don't know if he's not the right partner or what the case may be. But, you know, to say that he, you know, wouldn't have provided value. I mean, we have other important projects. What other important projects, like besides the, you know, like based on what he was saying, like a Cidade do Benfica, like that just seems like a long-term plan, pipe dream type of thing. That's, I don't think that important for the club. I don't know. I think it's a little disappointing to hear that they weren't accepting of it.
Bill, what are your thoughts? And I think it was interesting that when Texter's interest appeared, fans were like, no, Benfica dos sócios, blah, blah, blah. Não queremos
and now
vender.
everyone's probably pissed.
And now everyone's like, oh, agora tem outras coisas mais importantes, não querem falar com ele. So it's like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? When the option was there, people were saying that, no, we shouldn't sell. Now that they've taken the option off the table, at least for now, people are like, well, what the hell? Why are we not doing that? Bill, thoughts? Agree with it? Disagree?
No, I agree. I think as long as the Socios maintain the majority at the club, I think
And Rui Costa said he won't ever give up
right.
the majority.
And I don't see the harm in bringing on an investor that can help grow the brand. And what limited knowledge I have of Texter and is essentially like he grew Fubu TV to be what everyone fucking knows it is right now. And I think something like that and having those type of connections with just, even if it's just the television rights, is huge. And I think I saw something, I think he tweeted it out saying like he was trying to watch the final of Taça da Liga,
yeah,
and he couldn't find it on any Portuguese on any channel.
Well, he said on Benfica TV, but Benfica TV didn't have the rights for the game. So,
but like, I think having a guy like that, and you can kind of expand your brand and get these TV rights, not just in the U.S. but globally, that helps you grow as a brand. I think would be huge. And I mean, and I think the sticking point with a lot of Benfiquistas is probably not losing the majority of ownership. And like you said, Rui Costa said that would never be part of the negotiations. And I think Texter said the same. I think he said it would be like a minority.
He just wants a seat at the table. So,
yeah.
Again, but we don't know what was said in the background, right? Those are just what's coming out in the news. We don't know what's being said in the background. Dave says an investor would have taken the Darwin deal. May have, or with an investor, you don't have to worry about the cash from the Darwin deal.
What's your point? Think it's a missed opportunity?
I think it is and it isn't. I think having an investor is a good idea. I'm in favor of it. All right, someone to help the brand grow, someone to help market the team, new ideas, a little bit of cash injection, capital. But I also think that jumping at the first opportunity isn't always the best option either, right? I think hearing others out, what are your plans right now? They have an understanding of what Texters is. If others come to the table, there's been a plan or an idea of wanting to do something similar to what Bayern Munich has done, which is have 3 investments, outside investments that are split, right? And between those 3, they help you build the club and the investment and the name of the brand. Your cousin Victor says maybe Jerry
Jesus.
Jones will invest.
No, we'll never win another fucking title again.
But again, it's an opportunity that's there. It's an opportunity that I don't think is going to go away, but I think it's an opportunity that needs to be thought out properly. And I think there's a lot going on around the club right now with all the stuff off the field, with all, the media bullshit, every day it's a different, Scooter, someone said this, that, the other thing. I think there's a lot of other things going on around the club right now that I would prefer the club focus on those things, figure out the issues, clean out the dead wood from the structure to the players, get all that foundation back to the way it needs to be. And when the club's in a healthy situation, if there's really investors really interested, if they're interested today, the way Benfica's at, they're sure as hell not going to turn it away when Benfica's doing well, is my view on it, right? It's maybe going to come at a higher premium, but I don't see many investors, if Benfica's doing well, saying no if they're interested today. Juninho says, yeah, but it's the right investor. I feel like it should be someone who knows the league, the culture, etc. Again, I think hearing out what are your options and making sure that it's the right decision and not just making a decision to make a decision, I think is the important piece, right? We've seen Anzi Makmala, whatever the hell they were called in Russia, right? Like investors pumped all sorts of money into it. Eto'o went over there, right? And has anyone heard of them since? No. Right. So it could easily go haywire really fast. So I would prefer them do the right decision and think it out properly before they just say, hey, someone wants to put money into us. Let's go with them. Right. They sound like a good idea. So time will tell.
Yeah.
Close out. I want to get your predictions for Benfica Gil Vicente on Wednesday. Back home in the league. It's an absolute crapshoot at this point. I don't know what to expect, who's going to show up, how they're going to play. Kenny, what is your prediction here?
Gil Vicente, huh?
They're playing well. I believe we lost to them last year at home, if I'm not mistaken, 2-1.
They are playing really well.
Let me see here. So Gil Vicente right now is currently 5th. 8 wins, 6 draws, 5 losses. They don't score very much, but again, they're having a pretty good season.
All right, I'm gonna go. I think it's gonna be a tight one. I'm gonna go 2-1 Benfica.
All right, let me see this 2-1 for Benfica. Bill, what is your prediction? And just to recap here, we lost to them 2-1 last year. They were up 2-0, and then we ended up pulling one back with an own goal. In their last 10, Gil Vicente has lost 2, 1 against Sporting and 1 against Lessa for the Taça de Portugal. They've won 5 of their last 10, drawn 3 and lost 2. So they're a team that's doing well. Bill, prediction.
We tie 1-1.
Let me see.
I can't keep predicting. I can't just keep
It's
going
tough.
wins
It's tough.
We haven't seen anything fucking new. Like it's just gonna be the same shit. And Gil has been playing well, like you guys have said. Like I just don't see anything changing.
Tomo says he doesn't trust Rui Costa anymore. Joaninha says, I know I'm not in your league, but 3-1 for Benfica. All right, I'll jot that down. See if you get it right. I hope you're right. My prediction for this game is going to be with Kenny 2-1. I think it's going to be another tight one. And I don't have very high hopes for this game, unfortunately.
Knowing Oscar.
Yeah, Kenny's. I have to follow the hot hand.
I think I've climbed
you have
at least
12 spots. Yeah, at least. I got
knowing Oscar, he's probably going to predict like a 2-1 loss.
Yeah. What do you get? You get a high five, and you get to come on the podcast next week. Show your face, give us your thoughts. Don't be scared. Telmo says he believes we're going to win because we're not going to lose every game. I guess that's a good way. That's a good way to look at it. Eventually you got to win one, right? Yeah. Even a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. Don't forget tomorrow at 4:00 Boston time, 9:00 Lisbon time, we will have Carlos Manuel on the podcast to tell us a little bit about his career at Benfica, his formation, some interesting stories, and I'll get his thoughts on Benfica's current moment and what he sees and what he thinks we're missing. Don't forget to follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. And we just finally made our way to TikTok. Still getting used to figuring it out. It's for the young kids. I'm not so young anymore.
Don't ask me to dance on TikTok, man. That's one thing I will not do.
If you want to see Kenny, if you want to see Kenny dance on TikTok, leave a comment.
Can we get this? Can we get to like
this?
If we get 100 likes on this pod,
yeah, if
Kenny will be dancing.
If we can get 100 likes on this podcast, Kenny's gonna dance. We're at 12 right now. Let's go. Hit that like button. Yeah, so don't forget to follow us on social media. It doesn't cost you anything. It takes a couple seconds, and it makes us feel good about ourselves. And Joaninha says, if I get the score right, Kenny has to dance. Are you taking that wager?
No, no.
Oh, Victor says, I have family videos of Kenny dancing as a kid. Victor, we need those in VHS format as soon as possible, please. As always, gentlemen, a pleasure having you on. Very interesting and informative conversation, some good debate. We will be back again tomorrow, like I said, with Carlos Manuel. Portuguese podcast will be back on Wednesday with the other guys to share their thoughts in Portuguese. And then we will be back next week with these guys and maybe a few more, depending on who's available. Gentlemen, have a good evening. Victory. Yeah, hopefully. Well, at that time, it'll be 2 games. Hopefully Benfica plays next Monday. So hopefully 2 wins. Telmo quickly says Benfica always concedes goals. Even in the predictions, there's no way not to put Benfica without conceding a goal. That seems to be the case. And Victor says Kenny's got moves. I can't wait to see this. Gentlemen, have a good evening. Viva Benfica, and we will chat soon.
Later, boys.